I had no intention of making another video this quickly, but I'm afraid I found myself unable to function without getting this out. Yet again, a black person is on video apparently being murdered by police. And yes, I said murdered because no matter how you feel about how somebody should conduct themselves while being arrested, the fact of the matter is resisting arrest is a misdemeanor. It's not punishable by death. Having a record is not punishable by death. Even having a gun is not punishable by death. And the man was clearly subdued when he was shot. Now, as much fun as I have talking crap about people like Umar Johnson and Tariq Nasheed for the whole black supremacy thing, I am black, and stuff like this bothers me. Now, I'm not going to pass judgment on the officers. I believe everyone deserves due process, and looking guilty isn't the same as being guilty. I want to talk about something broader than the killing of one person. I want to talk about the current plight of black people in America when it comes to police brutality, as well as other factors. Now, I don't believe we live in the system of white supremacy, but I do believe that out of all of the marginalized groups in the country, black people are about the only ones with legitimate grievances. We're just barely 50 years removed from lawfully receiving civil rights, and it would be naive to believe that the Civil Rights Act automatically erased the idea that we're second-class citizens from people's minds. Heck, the president who wrote the act was assassinated before it was passed. And it's no secret that things like the privatization of prisons and the war on drugs have disproportionately harmed black people, and not simply because we make crappy decisions. There's reason to believe that we were still being systematically kept down by the government in quantifiable ways as recently as the 80s. Has it gotten better? Of course it has. It's gotten a lot better. But sad to say, we're not quite there yet, and I think it's time we took a real look at the steps we need to take to get there. Unfortunately, the closest thing we have to an actually tangible effort to effect change is the garbage fire known as Black Lives Matter. When this movement started after the acquittal of George Zimmerman, I was on board with it, and even more after the death of Mike Brown, before the evidence later showed the hands up, don't shoot narrative was complete bullcrap. Police brutality is an obvious problem in this country, and like the privatization of prisons, it disproportionately affects black people because one, the high poverty rate in our communities, which inevitably leads to more crime, two, the destructive gangster culture that too many of us have embraced for too long, which also leads to more crime, and three, the fact that both of those things have put a stigma of criminality on black people as a whole, which makes those of us who aren't criminals still be viewed as criminals. Unfortunately, Black Lives Matter has devolved into a joke of a movement synonymous with whiny millennials who cry racist at every turn and have no real plan of action to fix the issues in our own communities or actually stop the systemic problems that harm us instead of just whining about it. Black Lives Matter has become nothing more than just another aimless, useless, downright annoying social justice movement. However, it's a movement I still think is necessary. We desperately need to take the next and hopefully last step toward the world of brotherhood and equality that Martin Luther King talked about all those years ago. Call me an optimist, but I don't think Black Lives Matter has quite fallen into the realm of being as cancerous and destructive as some other once great movements. So, in this video, I'm going to outline how I think we can fix Black Lives Matter.
I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm black, y'all, and I'm blacker than black, and I'm black, y'all.
One thing the woke people like to drone on about is how black people just like to pray about things and never take action. These people seem to think blocking traffic and inhaling copious amounts of tear gas is somehow more effective. That, in fact, has only made things worse. Look to the past and follow the example of previous movements that actually got stuff done. I'm going to focus on three of them. The mainstream civil rights movement led by Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the Black Power movement led by the Black Panther Party and its leaders, and the Black nationalist movement led most notably by Malcolm X. All three of these movements wanted different things. The civil rights movement wanted black people integrated into the current system as equals. The Black Power movement sought to politically and economically empower black people through our own efforts rather than having our own rights given to us by the established system. This movement was deeply rooted in Marxism and communism. The Black nationalist movement was similar to the Black Power movement in that they didn't believe black people should seek to be granted rights by the current system. but that we should build our own wealth in our own communities. Basically, establish our own system and defend that establishment with violence if necessary. Very clear objectives, very clear goals. So, what are the goals of Black Lives Matter? Well, let's hear from one of the people who started the Black Lives Matter movement, Alicia Garza.
What are the demands? Let's start with stop killing us.
And that's it. She doesn't really go on. Obviously, stop killing us is an unreasonable demand, but not every cop straps on his gun and says, I'm gonna shoot a nigga today. And some of us are actual violent criminals. Just shouting stop killing us to no one in particular is not a goal. It's an uncreative slogan. Black Lives Matter sympathizer and community organizer Jamala Rogers said this. Alicia and I were in a meeting not too long ago, and I said, are there some things all Black Lives Matter chapters should be doing or could be doing? I think there might have been some resistance to having something that definitive. And therein lies the problem. The Black Lives Matter movement is unorganized. It has no real demands and no real goal except to make Black Lives Matter. How you make Black Lives Matter, the level to which Black lives already matter, if at all, who you make Black Lives Matter to, and what make Black Lives Matter even means are all up to whatever interpretation you have. How can people be expected to get behind a movement when they have no idea what it really stands for outside of what it's called and some vague slogan? What if someone just said you should join the National Socialist German Workers' Party? Bernie Sanders might have turned you on to the idea of socialism. Germans are pretty cool people, and you're all for the working class, so sure, let's join that party. Congratulations, you're a Nazi. The mission of a movement needs to be clearer than just its name, or nobody's going to be able to get behind it. All three of all three of the civil rights movements I named earlier had clearly defined leadership. Even if there were some internal struggles, there's a reason we don't talk about those things today. They were kept internal. We live in a highly individualist time where everyone wants to be a special snowflake, and of course no one wants to actually follow anyone. Again, let's look at what Alicia Garza said about leadership in the Black Lives Matter movement.
We hear a lot, people asking us, well, what are the demands? Who are your leaders? Look around.
Look around. Everyone's a leader, including this chick. Everyone isn't fit to lead, and everyone doesn't embody the ideals of the movement. At least it wouldn't if it had ideals. Not to mention, people need to know who to talk to. If President Trump decided to sit down with a Black Lives Matter leader, I'm just messing around. I wanted to see if I could trigger somebody. But say whoever our next president is decided to sit down and really talk policy with the Black Lives Matter leader, or if the leader was invited to speak at the UN, who would they contact? Because right now, they probably contact the de facto leaders like Alicia Garza. Are you okay with that? Because Alicia Garza sees Black Lives Matter as her attempt to bring back the Black Liberation Movement. You know, the violent radical movement started by former members of the Black Panther Party, that movement that was anti-capitalist, because she does want to overthrow our entire economic system. Did you know that? You probably don't know that because it's not published anywhere, because in the minds of these de facto leaders, everyone can define what Black Lives Matter means to them. No, Black Lives Matter needs clear leadership from people who embody the ideals of the movement, not their own personal politics. We need someone who can inspire people, someone who was an intellectual like these two, and someone who knows how to get stuff done. We need somebody who will see crap like this and loudly say that doesn't represent us or our clearly stated ideals. The Black Lives Matter movement needs a strategy or strategies. As far as I can tell, the current strategy is what's in this quote from Alicia again. What is our path to power? And what are our strategies to get there? Our approach at this point is to experiment and innovate boldly and courageously. Basically, throw crap at the wall and see what sticks. What kind of political movement is that? To take a page out of the book of a successful movement, let's look at the civil rights movement. They wanted equality when it came to diners, so they had sit-ins at the diners. These sit-ins weren't just to inconvenience people, although they did that too. The protesters demanded to be served. If they had been allowed to eat, then they presumably would have left. They clearly made the statement that it'll be better for everyone if you just treat us equally. So tell me what the heck blocking traffic is supposed to do. Hey, tons of people we don't know, we're inconveniencing you because the police are mistreating black people. We know there's nothing you can do about it, but this is all we can think of, so we just went with it. That's dumb. A strategy is something like giving donations and votes to representatives that sympathize with your cause instead of bogarting them and forcing them to say Black Lives Matter as if that's going to do something. Or how about outwardly condemning some of the people within the community that push the destructive culture that makes all these black criminals spring up? There need to be clear, organized effort with clear goals in mind. These random protests aren't doing anything for anybody. Last but not least,
I'm blickety black, blacker than black, black, I'm blacker than black, yo, because I'm black and I'm back.
last but not least, change the name. No, not because I don't think Black Lives Matter. It's because too much damage has been done. The words Black Lives Matter no longer hold any meaning beyond a worn out hashtag. Black lives most certainly do matter, but the movement has lost too much steam and it no longer matters. What changing the name will also do is help to weed out the bad apples. Due to its lack of policing of its own ranks, Black Lives Matter has been hijacked by a lot of crappy people. Adopting a new identity and leaving the old one to fester with the filth will help in separating the wheat from the tares when it comes to the movement. Those who are a part of the organized network will get the memo of the name change. And make the new name an actual name and not a statement, an organization people can actually claim to be associated with instead of an idea people say they agree with. Here's the thing. I love being black. I wouldn't trade it for the world. But it saddens me to see the state of black people right now due to the failure of the system and the failures of our culture. Because I was addressing Black Lives Matter, there are some cultural things I didn't get to, such as the myth of black on black crime being a myth. Things like that are too often used as conversation stoppers when it comes to issues like police brutality, and I didn't want to be that guy, so I'll save it for another day. Now, normally I don't ask for people to share my videos, but I want this to reach as many people as possible. I'm not just doing this because I want to hear myself talk. I would actually really like to start a conversation about this and maybe actually see some real change, some real lasting change that people give a crap about. You did sit through this ungodly long video for some reason, so pass it along. Perhaps get it into the hands of someone who can actually implement this crap. And if you identify with Black Lives Matter, then do your part and make it a hashtag worth using again.
Listen to the bass. Listen to the bass. Listen to the bass.